Yo, what is going on, guys? SMH Super Mario Hoops back with some more hoops, and today we are hopping right back into the top 50 list of all time. This time we got a player by the name of Chris Paul, and I'm sure a lot of you guys know him because, well, he's still in the NBA today. Now, where do I rank Chris Paul on my all-time list as of today? I currently have him ranked 38th. And that might surprise you guys, maybe too high, maybe too low. We're going to kind of hop right into this video. Be sure to like, be sure to subscribe, notification bell, do all that jazz. And without further ado, let's get into Chris Paul and his career. So he's an 11-time NBA All-Star every year from 2008 to 2016, and then also these last few years in 2020 and 2021. He's made 10 All-NBA teams. He made 4 times on the first team in 2008, along with 2012, 2013, and 2014. 5 times he's been second-team All-NBA in 2009, 2015, 2016, and the last 2 years in 2020 and 2021. And he made third-team All-NBA once in 2011. Now, he's made 7 All-Defensive First Teams from 2009, and also every year from 2012 to 2017. And he's also been a multiple-time All-Defensive Second-Team member in 2008 and 2011. In terms of assist leading, he's done that for the entirety of the NBA 4 times in 2008, 2009, 2014, and 2015, and he's led the league in steals as well 6 times in 2008, 2009, and the 4 years between 2011 and 2014. Now, in terms of MVP shares, he's received votes 10 different times. 9 times he's been a top 10 finisher, 5 times he's been a top 5 finisher, and 1 time he was the runner-up in 2007 and 2008, losing to only Kobe Bryant. So while he's always been up there, he doesn't have an MVP to show for it as of right now. In terms of his all-time stat rankings, I'm just going to rattle off a few for you guys. His 10,275 assists puts him 5th all-time. 9.4 assists per game ranks him 4th all-time. 2,332 steals puts him 5th all-time. His 2.1 steals per game puts him 9th all-time. 87.3 shooting percentage from the free throw line puts him 25th in NBA history. Now, in terms of some advanced stats, 24.9 PER ranks him 9th in NBA history. 139 offensive win shares puts him 10th in NBA history. 189.5 win shares puts him 11th in NBA history. His 0.241 win share per 48 rating puts him 5th in NBA history. A 7.4 box plus minus puts him 5th in NBA history. A 5.2 offensive box plus minus puts him 9th in NBA history. His 2.2 defensive box plus minus actually ranks him 17th of all time, and it's the highest among all eligible guards and the 3rd highest among non-big men, behind only Andre Kirilenko and Kawhi Leonard. An 89.7 VORP rating is good for 7th all time, and his 122.6 offensive rating is good for 3rd in NBA history. Now, as we can see, Chris Paul, many people will call him the point god, but he looks to be the stats god in this case. And now, as we transition to him in the playoffs, things might look a little bit different here. In terms of his comparison to the regular season, stats such as his true shooting percentage, his PER, his win share per 48, and his box plus minus dropped slightly, even though his usage percentage began to increase, which isn't always the most efficient outcome for the postseason. And most of these stats still appear great in accordance with most NBA players, but it's just not Chris Paul normality. In fact, among all 4 of those stat categories in the past 4 seasons, he's only had 1 playoffs in which he shot above his averages, and that was his true shooting in the 2020 playoffs with OKC. Note that this was also his shortest run, and in a Game 7, while CP3 had a triple-double, it was the surge of rookie Lou Dort that saved their chances at possibly winning this game, and they ultimately did. And I don't want to really take away from Chris Paul and what he did that year, because that whole season was pretty amazing, but it just should be known that Lou Dort was the biggest reason why the Thunder were still in that game, for his amazing offensive play, his efficiency, and his defense on James Harden that night. And we know he had injuries in Houston, and along with his 4th quarter woes, especially in 2019 against the Warriors, along with some conflict with teammates like James Harden. But that's the other thing about Chris Paul, is that while he's a great passer and a great playmaker, you don't always get the feeling that players enjoy playing with him. Of course, DeAndre Ayton said so, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander said so, but sometimes you see guys like Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, Kenyon Martin, Glenn Davis, James Harden have either said the opposite thing or given him a negative connotation as a result. Now, this is something that, you won't really see with a guy like Steve Nash, you won't really see with Magic Johnson, and so on. And that's why I think it's a maturity thing for Chris Paul. Yeah, he's gotten this praise in recent years with Shai and with DeAndre Ayton over his past 2 seasons, respectively. However, all those years, at the end of his time with New Orleans, that got ugly. His time in LA was ugly. His time with Houston was ugly. And I don't think we can leave that out. But Chris Paul has not only had mental breakdowns with teammate relationships, but also in some playoff series, especially with the Clippers. I mean, in 2012 against the Spurs, he averaged about 12.5 points, 9 assists a game, 4 rebounds on 4.5 turnovers a game, on about 37% from the field and 33% from 3, good for 43% true shooting. What's even worse is that the fact that the Clippers' backup point guard at this time, which was Eric Bledsoe, actually outplayed him. I mean, they were a +7 net rating with him on the court, as opposed to a -26 with Chris Paul. Bledsoe also averaged similar points and rebounds on nearly 71% true shooting, while also keeping Tony Parker to rough shooting, especially in games 1 and 4 when he got his most opportunity to play and showed it on both ends while Paul didn't on either. In the 2013 series against Memphis, after building a 2-0 lead, they would drop the next 4. Paul had a horrible shooting game 3 and went 1 of 5 from the field on a team worst -18 in the second half of game 4, a game where a Clippers halftime lead turned into a 21-point loss, in which both of those games were single-digit differentials going into the fourth quarter. Game 5, he was a little better, but still shot under 40% in the second half and the fourth quarter. And in Game 6, he had a good performance for him, but to even allow that 3 straight games where he fumbled the bag, it should be noted. As for Blake Griffin, he was pretty bad this series too, but it still doesn't excuse the fact that after Game 2, Chris Paul was pretty bad himself. In 2014 against OKC, his stats look good on paper, but when you rewatch the games, Chris Paul had probably one of the biggest player meltdowns of his career in Game 5. With a 101-93 lead in the last 3 minutes, the Clippers had a chance to go up 3-2 and close the deal at home in Game 6. Chris Paul would miss the next 2 shots before he made a 17-footer with a Blake Griffin free throw in between to make the score 104-97. Then Durant made a 3 to make it 104-100, and after a Jamal Crawford miss with 23 seconds left, KD made a layup off a Westbrook pass to make it 104-102. The Thunder have to foul unless Chris Paul turns it over, and that's just what happened. Not only did he do that, but then he also fouled Westbrook on the 3-point shot, who of course made all his free throws. 105-104, the Thunder lead. The Clippers get one last chance, and Chris Paul loses the ball for another turnover, and they blew it. And to top it off, they blew a 16-point lead in Game 6 of that series. In 2015, the Clippers blow a 3-1 lead to the Houston Rockets. I think most people recognize the Rockets role players like Josh Smith, Corey Brewer, Jason Terry were kind of the biggest reason why this win for Houston actually happened, because James Harden didn't have the greatest series himself. And while Chris Paul and Blake Griffin seemed to play pretty good and pretty efficient, I mean, it's still blowing a 3-1 lead. I know people can't really recover off that. It's like a stain in everyone's legacy, so we have to make it noted. Now, in 2016, the Clippers blew another 2-0 series lead, this time against Damian Lillard and the Blazers, except in Game 4, Chris Paul broke his hand. Regardless, they still lost Game 3, and in Game 4, they were losing when Chris Paul got hurt, along with the fact he was a -7 for that game. So Portland still likely overcomes this 2-0 and at least ties the series at 2-2. And then in 2017 against the Jazz, the Clippers had zero business losing this series. I mean, Gordon Hayward was playing great that year, but other than that, the Jazz did not have much this series. Joe Johnson and Boris Diaw gave a few good blasts to the past, but come on, like, the Jazz should not have won this series. Because remember, Rudy Gobert got hurt the first possession of the series and missed several games afterwards before coming back at limited capacity. Sure, Blake Griffin got hurt, but Gobert was arguably the best rim protector this year, and they lost him against Lob City. And it's not like Lob City is just Blake Griffin, but also DeAndre Jordan, and Chris Paul didn't do his best job of getting him involved in Gobert's absence. Add in the fact that Hayward outplayed him down the stretch of the final 3 games this series, and in a Game 7, Chris Paul put up 13 points, 9 assists, 4 rebounds, on 6 of 19 shooting from the field, 1 of 7 shooting from 3, 0 of 1 from the free throw line for 33% true shooting, while Hayward nearly doubled him in points, rebounds, efficiency, and played much better than him in the fourth quarter before Chris Paul made his way out of LA in the offseason. And even just this year, I know he was hurt early on with the shoulder, but he was just awful that series against the Lakers and once again was outplayed by a backup point guard, Cameron Payne. His Denver series was really good, but his Clippers series was primarily awful with the exception of the last game, and it helped that the Suns got him a 2-0 lead in his absence, which the Clippers couldn't in Kawhi's. And in the finals, it seemed like he once again left more on the table than he provided. Games 3, 4, and 5 wasn't the Chris Paul that we saw in the regular season, especially Game 4, which was arguably the momentum shifter in the series, and that game was 100% Chris Paul's fault throughout the whole game and down the stretch. Now, Game 6, he was pretty good in the fourth quarter, but it's, again, too little too late. So in conclusion, I think Chris Paul is properly rated. You know, this is around the range 30 to 40. I see most people have him. I think he should be more about 35 to 40 in my opinion. But just like with James Harden, Chris Paul has multiple scenarios with only himself to blame for not having a ring by now. I still think he's better than Harden in the playoffs and a player more geared toward a winning culture, but you can't ignore the poor playoff performances. I mean, his 2012 series against the Spurs was a nightmare. The collapse against OKC in 2014, the 2013 Grizzlies fourth quarter woes, and that 2017 Jazz series was just bad, and his Rockets days in general. Because quite frankly, Chris Paul had about 3 or 4 years from 2016 to 2020 where he was not an all-star, he was not all-NBA, and some of it's from injuries, but other parts was the fact that he was to the point where people were calling him washed. And again, the best ability is availability. And he isn't washed, he's still a top 5 point guard in the league right now, and one of the best in NBA history. And I don't mean to seem like I'm only giving him a rough time, because that's a big reason why I still label him as properly rated. I think that his season with OKC is one of the craziest things in NBA history. I think that his third season with the Hornets, where he almost won MVP, that's something that we should give him praise for. Even his Game 6 to get revenge on the Clippers this year, I mean, that was just something that, I mean, it's like storybook, you know? But guys, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Is Chris Paul overrated? Is he underrated? But I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, notification bell. And I think that's going to do it for me. So I'm out. Peace.